Hey everybody, Doug here from 2 Plus Stuff, and today we are taking a look at the 40K app. Now, if you don't know and you haven't seen it online, the 40K app was out for a bit. It had a stumble in the beginning, and they recently added the ability to create lists and things like that. And so I thought we would kind of give it a, we'll give it a redo. We'll take a look at the app as it is, and I think it's really important simply because I know how important the Sigmar version of this, the Azyr app, was helpful for getting new players into the game. When you have access to information, it makes learning these very, very complicated games much easier. And so we're going to talk about how well it does that and kind of go through a little bit of how the list builds and stuff like that. And towards the end of this video, I'm going to give my honest opinions on it. I have pros and cons and things that I would like them to implement in the future. So go ahead and stay tuned. I'd love a discussion about that. Okay, so here we are at the app opening up. And as you can see, we open up at the reference tab. The bottom slide there lets you know what section you're at. And we are obviously under reference. Now, to put it very simply, unit information in this game is free. As long as you have an account, you don't have to pay for it, to my understanding. We'll go to the Tau, we can look at the data sheets, and you can see all the different cool units that they have. And the information is written out very well. Now, one thing I do want to touch on, and I'll touch on this later, I love the cleanliness, I should say, of how all the information is presented to you. It's all very easy to reference. As you scroll down, you'll see all the different weapon options and stuff like that. One thing to note is if your faction does not have a 9th edition codex to it, battle tome, you'll be able to see all of the allegiance abilities, is what we would call them in AOS, but this is basically if, entire detachments made of Tau stuff, you get access to these special rules, same kind of concept, and the faction keywords. However, we'll look at the Necrons, because they have a 9th edition codex here. And if we look at those, you can see the data sheets, still free. That's rad, I dig it. But the second you get to the abilities, that's when you start running into the paywall. And the paywall essentially for these works that if you have the codex for your faction, you type in a code on mywarhammer.com, adds it to your account, and then you have access to all the information possible. Okay, so that's kind of the limits of what we got going there. For me in particular, we're going to go down to Codex Space Marines. And so I did put in my code for the codex that I own. And you can see it lists all the information there. It's a nice clear format, like I said. I really do like that quite a bit. But those things were usable before, and so let's talk about Battleforge. I have a test one here. Let's delete that. We're going to start a new one. And essentially, go here, we'll type in a name, we'll call it test. Again, there we go. And you can put some notes in there. I like that little note feature. That's kind of cool. So what I want to show you here, let's see. So we need to decide on a faction here. Eternal War missions are just kind of the general options. If you go to Grand Tournament, it kind of links it down to kind of the most common sizes you'll see for an event, which is 1,000 points and Strike Force at 2,000. So you have the Eternal War thing here. It just gives you all your options. Let's build a 1,000 point list, and you choose your faction. So I have Space Marines. We're going to go with the Imperium. That brings us out to the main menu where you can click on that list you just made. And this is where 40K and AOS diverge pretty heavily when it comes to list construction. So in AOS, you could just do, add to my battle, and it has this nice little section where it's just all the units that you're using in your game. This, because of the nature of 40K and how list building works, you have to make detachments separately. So we're in the list. We need to add a detachment. We have 1,000 points, so let's go ahead and do a battalion here. We're going to select this. And for each detachment, you have to choose a faction, because in 40K, that's how you would bring in other armies and that kind of stuff. So we'll go with Adeptus Astartes, confirm, and boom, we are in. Now, we got to click into the detachment that we have, and now we can begin adding units. For most of the game, honestly, for me personally, I'm just going to make a battalion detachment. It's just all I'm going to do. But there are many reasons for competitive players to build all different kinds of lists, so keep that in mind. Now, what I like about this kind of display, like a user interface, is something that I do think they nailed. If you go here on those little yellow sections to the top left here with the skull and the triangle, those are your minimum requirements. That's 2 HQ or leader units and 3 troop units. So we can click on an HQ, and you'll notice, well, it gives us a whole bunch of weird models. All these named characters. That's because we haven't assigned our Space Marines detachment to be the actual chapter that I want them to be. So we'll go up there, we'll go chapters, and I need Imperial Fists because that's what I'm painting. Here we go, choose. And now it will filter out all of the hero models that are not relevant to me. Now I will say that they are taking feedback right now because some options shouldn't be there, and they are. So that's stuff that'll happen with time. It's just an immense amount of data to try and collate and all this stuff. But we'll go ahead and just work with what we have here. So we got Captain. We'll throw a Captain in there. Why not? And we'll do Captain Lysander to kind of show off a named character. And then we'll go over to Troops. And let's keep it as simple again. We'll go with Intercessors, and Assault Ones. So that gives us 2 little gun guys. And of course you can add, once you fill the minimums, then you can add as much as you want. Of the other ones, I say as much as you want. There are limits, but they're pretty modest. If I'm honest with you, you can add a lot to a battalion and you'll be all set. So now that we've added those things, we go back to the main screen and we see it all right there typed out for us. Very, very convenient. You can click on them. And of course, there you have your models. If you don't own or have the codex code linked, this information, like the actual stats of the unit, will be hidden. But you can still list build if you know the points and stuff like that. Or if you have the book in front of you and you haven't typed your code in yet, and you can still do all the loadout changes. One thing that I will say is that the way that they've started writing battle tomes in terms of how you tally up points for things is much cleaner and much more streamlined. I've complimented them that on before when I did my why 2020 is the year that 40k became interesting. So we can click on Astartes chainsword and you can switch out the weapons and you can see the profiles right there. It just makes it really nice and clean. That's all there is to it. Okay, so we're going to go back and take a look here. This little warning sign to the bottom left, we'll click on that and it says, list is not valid, I'm missing a warlord, and I still have 470 points left. If you click on options, it literally just directs you to do the thing you need to do, and that's actually really nice. So let's pick Lysander as our captain, and he gets locked into a warlord trait because he's a named character. So we'll just choose that. We get a relic, and that's not a have to choose. You can bring a relic. Whoop, whoop, it's thinking about it. It's thinking about it. There we go. So we'll just select a relic there. Captain's going to handle it. And boom, we are all set. Now, this is also a point where you can factor in pre-game stratagems. And so if you have things that have like alternate deployment, or if you have one of those stratagems where you can get like more artifacts, that kind of stuff, this is where you would type that in. So as far as like a list builder, it's very straightforward if you already know how to build lists for 40k. A lot of the bugs and errors are about, profiles showing up in the wrong place, which again, there's just so much data. It's kind of unwieldy. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of highlight this last little bit that I do like, where it has all of the FAQs and stuff in the app, which I think the AOS one desperately needs, right? Like we can get links to them, but we don't have it written out in plain English like this. And I just really do appreciate that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move back over to my face cam, and we're going to have a chat about things that I like and don't like about the app. So with the actual app itself and the list builder kind of shown off to you, again, there's a lot to play with, a lot to interact with. Let's talk about my actual thoughts, right? I have compliments and criticisms in equal measure. We're going to do a compliment sandwich style because that tends to be effective. And I got my list over here, so if I look to the right, my right, excuse me here. One thing I will say is that I love the user interface. If you remember the first Age of Sigmar app that came out, the original, it was a mess. It really was, in terms of just user interface. And when I say that, I mean, if you looked at the app as I was scrolling through it, the actual unit information is extremely clear. Like there's plenty of space, nothing felt too cluttered. I'm just using an iPhone. It's not special at all. If you have a tablet, I imagine it would look baller on that. And the way that it filters information for you, like the second I clicked on, being an Imperial Fish chapter, the fact that it just filtered through all that information was really helpful. Because even on, say, the War Scroll Builder online for AOS, other options will still show up sometimes, right? Like even if I say I'm Blessed Sons of Nurgle, other options will still pop up. And it's like, well, I don't want those. I want the Nurgle. I want the Blessed Sun ones specifically. And that carries over from the new wave of codexes. They're all being designed with a very easy to read and very clear style. I don't know how else to say it. It's very awesome, and that's translating into the app well. I really do appreciate that. I was on a call with a gentleman, a representative from Games Workshop, and they were initially asking the day that the Battleforge list builder launched, they were asking for feedback in terms of just things that I noticed right off the bat. And the one thing that I do think needs improvement is they need an update schedule for their app. And part of it is Games Workshop has come such a long way when it comes to communicating with their audience, right? I mean, there were dark times when they were just totally isolated, and that is slowly but aggressively changing at the same time, where they're making huge strides, but they need to get a little bit better on that. So what I'm saying is, when a codex drops for 40K or a battle tome for AOS, we know that within a month, right? I mean, depending on, global catastrophes and holidays and that kind of stuff, within a month we're going to have an FAQ, okay? And that's awesome. That's actually really good. Will it address everything and have it be totally fixed? No, but we'll get some information from the creators about what they were intending for things to do. Much in the same way that as Games Workshop now incorporates more digital products into their roster, and everything from books from the Black Library app to obviously the Azyr app and now My Warhammer via the 40K thing, the game is changing, and they need to change with it. Their communication style just needs to be updated to match what they're doing with physical copies. So, for example, when a General's Handbook or Chapter Approved drops and points are adjusted, we need to know when we can expect those things to be adjusted on our digital mediums. And here's the thing. For the monthly fee that each app costs, I think it is perfectly reasonable to expect, not everything has to go out the same day. That's a lot of coordination between departments. But, give us a range, right? It'll be updated within a month. So if you're planning an event, you can say, hey, we're using those points. It'll be ready by the time the event comes. Check your math, that kind of stuff. People can plan as long as they have some measure of information. And this has been kind of the major gripe that I've seen Age of Sigmar players and commentators have regarding the app, is that it just doesn't, there's no clue as to when it'll update. That being said, 40K is a much bigger audience with much more, quite frankly, there's so many more points to cover and, weapon options and all this kinds of stuff. It's a whole new world. Like, they just stepped into the ocean, essentially. And so having that plan of like, this is when you can reasonably expect things to be updated digitally as well as like FAQs and that kind of stuff, I think it's honestly beneficial for everybody, right? Us as consumers feel educated and we can wait patiently and be like, okay, that's fine. And then Games Workshop can set themselves a deadline to get some clarity and that kind of stuff. One other thing that really stood out to me when it comes to this app, and again, the app itself is not in beta, it's just the Battleforged, way of creating lists and stuff like that. There's no way in the app to directly put in the number for your codex. By that I mean, the new codexes, they give you a code in the back of the book. You type it in, which this is what should happen, okay? You should be able to open your app, type the number in, and boom, it unlocks all the information. What you have to do, and I didn't know this at first, so it took me actually a little bit of Googling to figure it out. You have to go to a totally different website called My Warhammer, create a profile, put your code in there, and then link that to your device. Because if you try clicking on a bit of information that is locked, it comes up with a little lock sign that says it must be unlocked, but it doesn't give you like a page or a direction or like anything. And so I was like, okay, but how do I unlock it? Like, because I haven't been following the 40K app and the community and how they've been doing those things, I didn't understand. And for me, as someone who loves Games Workshop products and like I understand the release schedule to an extent, I mean, as far as like how they go about selling their products and the box things like that, to have no clue how to update or throw in a code, it was ridiculous. And so they need to have something there where it's like at the banner at the bottom or a plus sign at the top that's just like enter your code, right? Boom, click it. And the device should be able to communicate with mywarhammer.com in the same way that if you go to mywarhammer.com and you put your code in there, it communicates to the device. Shouldn't be that difficult, but it's a real pain. Anyone in marketing can tell you that the more steps you put into a process, the more people will either fall away or be disgruntled, and just kind of get frustrated. Well, me trying to figure out how to get my codex activated digitally was a frustration. Like, it's just simple. It doesn't need to have like all the bells and whistles. It doesn't have to have access to your camera so it can scan barcodes. Nothing. Just a plus sign. Type in your product code here. Boom. Now I have one more thing here in the comments and criticism section, and it's a little bit of both. Hear me out. So when you look at the factions that do not have 9th edition codexes, so things like orcs, basically anything but Space Marines and Necrons and some of all the codex supplements they've put out for the various Space Marine chapters. If you don't have a 9th edition codex, you have total information, okay? And that's what I actually started with. I started looking at things like orcs and that kind of stuff where not only do you have the unit information, but you also have like whatever the equivalent of their allegiance abilities is, right? If all your things are orcs from the same clan, you get this special rule. It's how allegiance abilities work in AOS. And so you got that. You can see all their spells, you can see all this stuff, and it's so freaking cool. And I think to myself, $5 a month is worth that. It is worth that, because if you are someone who wants to get engaged in this hobby, there's so much information to learn. And that gets really, really tricky. And I actually had that in my notes here as a positive until I went and clicked on the Necron one, because the Necron is the other major release, I should say, that they have put out. And that one, you can see the units for free, but you do need to actually have the product code for the codex to unlock all of the special rules, allegiance abilities, spell equivalents, even though they don't have magic, that kind of stuff, where it's like, man, that's really hard to swallow, because you're asking $5 a month to give us a platform where we have to put in a code for a product that we already bought, usually for like $40-50, to get the basic information. I mean, part of it, I'll be honest with you, this is no longer even on my script, I'm just talking off the top of my head. Part of it is, with the Age of Sigmar app, even if you don't have the Azyr part where you actually have the list builder, the way that Age of Sigmar functions, I feel, is much more conducive to grab a box of models, don't worry about points, and just start playing, because all the unit profiles and all their information are right there. 40K is a little bit of a different beast in that, yes, you can technically play a game without any of their codex abilities, but some of them so dramatically define those factions that the models don't function the way that they should without them. Like, I think that the information that people need to walk into a Games Workshop store, see something on the shelf, pick it up, and walk out, and the store owner says, hey, here's a free app, go ahead, check it out, get all your rules there. There should be enough there, no matter what products they buy, to be able to start playing a game. And that game could look, wild, it could be open war, whatever like that, but there should be enough information for people to just jump right in. And I just didn't feel like there was. Like, if I went into the store and I bought a Start Collecting Necrons box and I tried to play those, models with the app in its current state where things are locked down unless you have the codex, I mean, you can move and you can shoot, but there's so much going on in the game that you have no access to, no information about. And I do think that there needs to be enough information freely given to get people excited to learn more, right? Like in AOS, you can see command abilities and they have basic traits built into the core rules and all these kinds of things. I don't know. It didn't stick with me right. Now, as for the actual list builder thing, I'll be honest with you, I really like it. The reason I say I like it is because I'm somebody who really was pushed away by the last edition of 40k because I didn't like list building. The detachment things where you were in a race to see how many detachments you could get to get more and more command points, that's been flipped now on its head, where now you want fewer detachments. So you saw in my example, I built 1 battalion list. That's all that I would ever use in a game of 40k. Just is. And you know what? That suits me just fine. As you know, there's little things like units showing up in the wrong stuff. That's all going to just take time. Again, there's so much data. But everything else, I felt like it worked really intuitively. I understood just by looking at it, this is where your HQ should go. This is your minimums. This is how much you need to do a thing. I really liked it. It was very simple, and it'll only get better because as each new codex comes out, they're simplifying the way points work in 40k, at least in my opinion. So I think it's wonderful. So that's it for my comments and that kind of stuff, my pros and cons. I want to end by just kind of throwing out a few ideas that I do think would dramatically improve the app. So what do we got here? I want to see a basic tutorial for how it functions, because you'll notice if you really looked at how I was doing things, I learned everything I had to do the app by pressing every single button, but there are icons in the top where there's no information about what they are. Like there's no text or anything like that. You have to click it to figure out, oh, that's what that is. And I forgot multiple times. There's a lot of buttons to push. So having some kind of just basic overlay that's almost like a slideshow. We've all seen those things when you get a new app. It's like an arrow points here. It's like, hey, start an army here. Walk people through how to build a detachment. Have that be accessible, because if you do want that experience of people being able to walk into a Games Workshop store, buy a thing, and start playing, and, first hit's free, and then get them sucked into the hobby, having it be as simple as possible. Walk them through the process of building a basic list, because it's not as simple as it is in Age of Sigmar, where I say, hero 3 troops, you're good to go, and then do whatever you want, right? It's not quite the same. Another feature I think would be awesome is the use of information bubbles. We've seen these where you'll have your text and there's like a little, question mark in a bubble next to it, and you click on that and it gets you a little more detail. Information for like when to use Eternal War versus I think they call it like a tournament style list. You can, just information to help people who don't understand what this is. And you could put those everywhere to kind of explain things, and you can just take direct quotes from like the core rule book and just copy paste. That's all you need to do, but it would go a long way to helping people understand, like, what am I working with here? Again, I'm always looking at these things from a new player perspective, because quite frankly, that's my target audience. And so I was trying to look through the app through the eyes of someone who's never experienced 40k in this way. Now, one thing I did compliment the app on, and I would like to see more of, is minimizing information, right? I talked about the user interface is really great. When I selected I wanted to be an Imperial Fist player, it filtered out all the other units that, shouldn't be. Like, there's no Space Wolves in there and that kind of stuff. The thing I wanted to do more of that is that if you assign a weapon, we assigned a special weapon to our captain in that example, when you go to look at his profile in the top right and it shows you his data card, it still shows you all the weapon options. And I feel like if you are in the Battleforge section and you click on a specific weapon, when you look at his quick reference thing, all of those weapons that you did not choose should be gone. Again, we're minimizing information. No one's going to accidentally look at the wrong weapon profile and things like that. So the final synopsis here, do I think it's perfect? Nope, no I don't. I think it takes a team of people who are able to work very rapidly in the ever-changing landscape of miniature games, because it radically changes all the time. Do I think it's a great step forward? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like, as someone who doesn't actively play 40k, but I'm getting into it because I have my fists I've been painting up slowly, I feel like I was able to quickly navigate it, learn it, and then understand it very, very easily. There's some hiccups along the way as far as where things land, but that's all just data entry that needs to be corrected. As far as the actual functionality of the app, I had absolutely no problem. Again, that's just my opinion, and this is how it's been working for me. So if you have any feedback as far as features and stuff like that you would like to see added into there, or filters added, that kind of stuff, leave in the comments down below, because quite frankly, Games Workshop reached out to me and asked me to do this video as an honest review. And I would think that they would love that information. So be polite, be respectful. It's the way you get what you want in this world. And we'll go ahead and check that out. So thank you all so much for watching. Happy wargaming. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed that video. It was made possible by the folks over here to the left. These are my top supporters over here on YouTube and on Patreon that keep this channel going. If you'd like to learn more about how to become a supporter and get some cool things in the process, like exclusive pictures and interactions with me, and get your questions answered here on the channel, go ahead and click any of the links down below or the join button on the community page over on YouTube. Regardless of your choice, I wanted to thank you so much for joining me with this video, and I look forward to seeing you in my next one. Happy wargaming.